You're listening to Rocket Night.
Are you ready? Hey, tonight I'm gonna take you on a little trip. We're going down south by the mighty Mississippi. I'm gonna take you to a place where lights never dim. Bring your mother, your brother, and your best friend. I'm gonna show you where they dance out in the street. They'll tell you all about your body heat. Not gonna talk about it, just gonna do it. Get on down if you feel good. Now, get on down.
I wanted to talk to you about your new album, of course, Dust and Bones, and also a little bit about your background, if that's okay, in your teaching. I'm kind of interested in getting information for people that are interested in learning the guitar, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Okay, because you have a really interesting background. First of all, let's talk about Dust and Bones. This is it's your 20th album, correct?
Yes.
That's quite a few.
I know, it is.
When did you actually start your career?
Well, for me, I actually went out, I moved to California in the late 80s. I went out and auditioned for Ozzy Osbourne. That was sort of, I guess, my first brush with fame, because I sent him some music and I got an audition. And that brought me to California, and I ended up, moving there, and I signed with Warner Brothers Records in the early 90s, and I had a hit with Hocus Pocus. I did a remake of this old classic, and so it was the early 90s that I had a hit, and it ended up going to the top 5 in Billboard, so that was really where it started. And then I went on to do a soundtrack to Endless Summer 2, a movie, and then I put out a bunch of instrumental records, and then I started doing this whole series of Christmas albums because my last name was Hoey, so I did a Hoey series. And I just, I like to do a lot of different stuff, and that's probably why I have 20 albums, because it's all, in different sort of genres, and now I'm sort of full circle with the blues rock thing.
I actually listened to some of your Christmas music, and now I think it's the only Christmas music I can tolerate.
Oh, that's awesome.
I personally am not a fan of Christmas, but listening to your music, I definitely dig it. It makes it cool.
Thank you so much. Well, I wanted to make it cool. I was like, why can't we just do a different version of, this song, or 12 Days of Christmas, or Silent Night? I like to do, rock and roll versions of old Christmas classics, and I found out there was a lot of other people that liked it too.
I think your Ho Ho Hoey series will definitely be part of my tradition.
Awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, and I notice you like to take a lot of other old classics. Like I saw a video for Linus and Lucy and Meeserloo, just a lot of old stuff, and make them metal.
Yes, I do. I do that. I take a lot of the old songs and I just rock them out. And in the beginning, when actually my first solo album I recorded, when I put Hocus Pocus on it, it was sort of a similar thing where I wanted to create a remake of an old classic to kind of let people hear something that was familiar, and then hopefully they would listen to my music, and it was kind of like to draw them in a little bit, like, hey, check out this song, but maybe you'll like me. And I ended up finding out that I do kind of like twisting old classics a bit, make them different.
It's so funny that you did the Hocus Pocus by Focus, the Dutch band. Growing up, that was the ultimate song.
Yes.
I grew up in the 70s, so I'm very familiar with it. And it was just a fun song. Just like I noticed you redid Frankenstein. I grew up with all the Edgar Winter as a kid.
Exactly. They were quirky kind of tunes, that had this weird sort of yodeling thing, and the Edgar Winter thing was just an interesting song. And then I did an album called Monster Surf, where I did a whole bunch of old surf classics, but I kind of rocked them out a little bit. So, it just keeps me excited, to do different things.
Well, when did you start playing the guitar?
I started when I was 14, is when I picked it up, and then I became pretty serious, right away. By the time I was 15, 16, I was really into it. That's all I did, I became very obsessed. And I hours a day, and just never stopped.
Ignore my call waiting. Unfortunately, you know how it is in the political season. Everybody is calling all the time. It just drives me crazy.
I did mine. I did star 70 before I called. I did it before I called you, but I didn't do it before you.
Yeah, I should have done it because it's all these stupid political.
I always go star 70 if I'm calling somebody for an interview, just because my mom won't leave me alone. But anyway.
Anyway, about growing up. In the old days, of course, we all grew up with vinyl. Did you used to like play the albums and try to figure them out?
Absolutely, yeah. That was my. I'm a child of the '70s, and I basically did the same thing. I put the records on, and once it was cassette tapes, it was easier to rewind the cassette than try to lift the needle up and move it back.
True.
But yeah, that's how we learned. We had to play by ear, and there wasn't this YouTube stuff, and we had to learn quick and fast, and I think it developed a sense of ear training. But now kids can really accelerate because everything's right on YouTube, and you can just jump on, and someone will teach you how to do it.
Yeah, I wish I had YouTube and tutorials 30 some years ago. It would have been a lot easier.
Right. Well, it's an advantage. I really think so. I think it is. It accelerates people's learning because they can see somebody doing it in front of them. But sometimes you learn something by struggling a little bit on your own, and you can get some other benefits too.
Mm-hmm. Well, we might as well just talk about some of the teaching stuff, and then I'll get into Dust and Bones. But since we're on the topic, if someone is starting out playing the guitar, what type of guitar do you think that someone should buy? Acoustic, electric, or should they get all the bells and whistles? What do you think?
Well, I've been teaching for a long time. I taught for years before I got a record deal. I was teaching, to make a living. And what I think is there's a misconception where people think, get an acoustic, learn how to play acoustic, and then you graduate to electric.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes acoustic guitars can be klutzy. The bodies can be really big for small people. The necks can be wide. The strings can be very hard to push down, and it can be discouraging for new guitar players because it doesn't matter how strong you are, how fast you can run, how much weight you can lift. If you've never played the guitar, there's muscles and tendons in your hands that you've never used, and then your calluses start to hurt. So I suggest if somebody's into like the blues, or rock, I say get an electric guitar, get a cheap, $100, $200 guitar to start off with to make sure you really like it. Put some light strings on it so it doesn't hurt your fingers too much. And if you're into folk music or acoustic music, then start off with acoustic, but maybe get one where they put some light strings on it so your hands don't hurt as much, when you start out. But that's my thought.
Yeah, I think the whole callus thing is what turns a lot of people off, and also the width of the neck. I got my first guitar when I was 15, and especially for females, it's just hard to wrap your finger around the neck.
Yes, they get big and they're square, and you're trying to hold it. I agree, and they're not always made for everybody's hands, and that's another thing. You got to go in the store and maybe find one that fits your hand too.
But I think when kids start out, immediately they don't want to do scales, they just want to play. And I think a lot of people get discouraged for that reason. They just want to instantaneously play. What does it take to get good, and what are some tips as far as starting out?
Well, I think the best thing to do when you're first starting out is you got to play a little bit of music that you like, and I think I've noticed if I teach students something that they really want to play, whether it's Green Day or Stevie Ray Vaughan, if they're trying to play something that they love and they desire to play, they'll try so much harder. Whereas if I say, okay, play Mary Had a Little Lamb, I'm telling you, it's going to lead to Smoke on the Water. They don't want to hear about it.
Mm-hmm.
What I think it's important to do is balance out showing them stuff that sounds like music, and then also give them stuff that is, the basic chords, maybe a couple simple scales. And the thing is to be consistent. Play every day, even if you just sit in front of the TV drinking your coffee, and you just play a couple chords while you're having coffee. Mm-hmm. It will continue to grow on your playing, and all of a sudden you'll get better and better. And it only takes about two to 3 months to really get pretty good at playing some basic guitar stuff if you stick with it.
What about effects? It seems everybody, when they hear electric guitar, they're hearing it through all sorts of distortion and people use pedals. I know when I started out as a teenager, everything was clean, and I thought, how do I get that sound? What are effects pedals that people might want to use?
Well, it depends on the sound you're going after, but what I use is EVH. It's the Eddie Van Halen designed amp. I use the Eddie Van Halen. It's called the EVH 5153 is the amp I use. But that's a great sounding tube amplifier with great distortion, great clean sounds. So if you start off with a really great amp, you're halfway there. As far as effects, I use a wah-wah pedal. I love wah-wah pedal because you can kind of make it sound cool. You can with rhythm or lead. It's about $100. And I like the Tube Screamer. It's called the TS9 Tube Screamer. It's a great little pedal because it gives you a boost, but it doesn't take over your sound completely. It just adds to it. And those are my two favorites. I do like reverb and delay. I'm a big delay fan. But I put them in the effects loop. In the back of the amp is a loop, if you want to get technical. And then when you plug it in there, the sound is a little clearer than if you just keep them all in the same chain. But I also recommend people getting little, processors that sort of do a lot of things in one. You can get these multi-effects units, and those are really fun too because you can get everything right there pre-programmed for you.
Yeah, I noticed you work a lot with Lita Ford, and I've always admired her a lot. And I got a guitar. We're talking like 1977. I thought, the Runaways were big, and the whole Suzi Quatro, all this stuff, and it didn't work out that way for me, obviously. But I always have admired people, that play really well, and I guess that's kind of why I'm asking these questions. My first guitar was a Gibson S1. And it's a 1977. I still have it.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and I had an old Sears Silvertone amp.
Oh, those are great.
Yeah, it was all the classic stuff. I mean, I've worked my way up. I still play guitar, drums, you name it. But
cool. Well, I got to tell you, Lita Ford's awesome. Working with her, you realize I loved her music. I was a fan anyway, but once we became friends and I started producing her, I really realized that she is the real deal, man. She just walks the walk, she talks the talk. She is completely what you see, and it's like in her blood, She's born to do what she does, and it's so great to see her because she is back in a way that's so strong right now. She's on tour with Hailstorm, who's a younger singer, sort of, in a lot of ways mimicking Lita, and here's Lita on tour with her, and they're out there playing together, and I love seeing it. And Lita and I are going to get together actually next month and do a little bit of song demoing for her next album. She wants me to help her with the next one, so I'm happy to do it.
I love seeing different musicians collaborate, and we might as well talk about Dust and Bones because you have the one song there, Coming Home, with Lita, and it's gorgeous. It's a beautiful ballad. I really enjoyed the song a lot.
So much. I wrote the song, and I thought about Lita. I thought about a duet, and she happened to be in town on tour, and I flew up to her bus with a laptop. I'm, Lita, you got to sing on this song with me, and she listened to it. And she's like, I like the song. Let's do it. So I kind of got her to sing while she was on tour.
I took some notes here. I listened to all the songs on your Dust and Bones, and
Thank you.
I put down, it's a great sing-along, too. And it also, what you're saying is very much real life. You're talking, there's a message behind it.
Yes.
And I think it's something that everybody can kind of relate to about going home.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I try to make the whole album about real life, and I always find the best things I write are some things I either, feel or experience or I witnessed or something. And the other stuff doesn't come out as good.
Mm-hmm. Well, Dust and Bones, you pay homage, and it's obvious to a lot of the different people that you've admired through the years. And there's a lot of variety of different styles in it, but it's really a nice mix.
Thanks.
Who's your daddy? Definitely rockabilly.
Yes, for sure.
I love it. I wrote down it's almost like a clean sound on the guitar, but it has a little bit of fatness to the tone.
Yeah.
And it's just a lot of fun and immediately makes me want to get up and start jitterbugging.
Yeah, that's what my mother's like 77, and she said, Mary, I can't sit down when you put that song on. She was just like, she goes, I want to put on a skirt and start jumping right now.
Exactly. It's like you can't sit in your seat. That might be a good single, actually, for that reason.
Oh, right?
I like it, and I'm really into the whole retro thing, and it's funny. I notice a lot of the different musicians that are metal musicians are going back to blues and stuff. Were you a blues lover already, or what kind of got you back into the blues?
Yeah, I love the blues. I mean, growing up in the 70s, obviously there was always like blues rock and kinds of things. I wasn't like so much growing up in the Muddy Waters and everything, but as time went on, I became a bigger blues fan. And I think when Stevie Ray Vaughan came out in the 80s and he was playing with David Bowie, hearing that stinging blues guitar in the middle of a pop song like Let's Dance grabbed me. And David Bowie introduced him to the world. And then when I heard the fire that Stevie Ray Vaughan played with, like, this incredible virtuosity, but yet he was playing this simple music called the blues, the people's music, it made me go, whoa, what's this dude drinking,
Yeah.
It made me get excited to master the blues, and it's always been in my blood, but I've always tried to make records that, would become commercial success, or compete with what's on the radio, because that's your natural instinct. I'm a white guy from Lowell, Massachusetts.
Yeah, that's
grew up
true.
in the Mississippi, so I never felt like I was an authentic blues person, and I think a lot of musicians do that to themselves. They think, well, how do I deserve to play the blues? I haven't suffered enough, or I haven't, I didn't grow up in that area, but I really realized that it doesn't mean that's not as important as playing blues because you love it. And I realized I don't have to change the face of blues to do it. You know what I mean? Where I can enjoy it. So I'm making that commitment to really stay with the blues rock thing because it is so much part of my roots.
Well, we wouldn't even know about a lot of the blues if the Brits hadn't brought it here in the 60s.
Absolutely.
And they're white, but yet they feel it. We all feel it because it is music of the people.
Well, you know what? You just said it. And the thing is, the blues, I realized that you don't have to be black, you don't have to be white, you don't have to be Asian. You could be anything.
Exactly.
About what it is it's a feeling, it's an emotion. And the best blues teacher that I ever had when I took private lessons, he said that to me. He said, don't just play the blues because I told you to play the blues. He said, only play the blues because you're feeling the blues. And he said, it doesn't mean you have to be sad, but you just have to put your whole self into it.
Yeah, and it's funny because even playing clean guitar, I listen to I love Eric Johnson, and like Stevie, of course. It's how you touch the strings, it's the tone, you can hear emotion. I mean, you can feel it.
Yeah.
It's blues is music to feel. It's not music to just listen to.
Exactly. And when I record in the studio, there's two different mindsets. I've made lots of records like Lita Ford, Living Like a Runaway, where if you listen to it, we crafted these songs, we layered tones, we layered acoustics and electrics, and it's like making a rock album or whatever you call it. Everything's sort of in its place, all the harmonies and everything. But the blues is the opposite of that. It's a performance. And when I started recording blues music again, I realized that I had to go in there and give it everything I had, and it wasn't about a perfect take, but it was about the right take,
Now, you are playing a resonator, aren't you, in some of the songs?
Yes, I started using a resonator guitar made by Republic Guitars, actually, out of Austin, Texas. And I have the smaller kind of steel one that has a cutaway, a little bit smaller body, and there's a Lace Spencer pickup on it, so I can plug it in and get some feedback and distortion on it. And I did a tribute to Johnny Winter on the Dobro, and the album opens up with the Dobro on Boxcar Blues because I wanted it to sound like, really old school. And then when the band kicked in, I wanted it to sound more like Led Zeppelin. So I was trying to show the opening of the record being, hey, we're going to take the old blues, but now we're going to modernize it a little bit.
Actually, that might be my favorite one on the album is Boxcar Blues.
Right on.
Yeah, I love slide guitar, and I was wondering, did you have to learn the slide later on in life? Is this something like a recent thing?
Well, I've always loved slide, and I would say I've dabbled in it. But playing the resonator guitar, I have to, playing an open tuning, open D tuning. But I tuned down one half step, so the whole album is down a half step, to E flat. So everything, with instead of A, it's now A flat. But I had to learn the open tuning, and that took practice. And I, developed the slide more in the last few years, and where it doesn't sound like the Dogo's been drinking.
Isn't that how Dwayne used to play a lot? Allman?
Dwayne Allman.
Yeah.
He was big on I know open D tuning was
exactly
important for him.
Well, I like Allman Brothers a lot, so
big time. And he what's cool is he would do slide on his Les Paul, it's just regular electric guitar too, which I really love. And Derek Trucks is obviously the new god of that.
Oh yeah, I've seen him a lot. And Susan Tedeschi. I'm here in Florida, and they live down here too. And there's a lot of blues festivals down here.
Yeah, we're going to be coming down there. Actually, we're booking some shows in Florida in some smaller clubs, and we're also looking to do some of the festivals this coming year.
Oh, that's good to know, because I saw that you were going to do the cruise thing in January, but I noticed most of your touring is in California and the Northeast.
Yes.
And Detroit, which I'm actually from Detroit originally. So.
Oh, that's awesome.
But it would be nice if you were to come down to Florida.
We're planning on it. We've been neglecting so many parts of the country, to be honest with you, and signing with Mascot, we're getting a little more support now to get the tour going in more areas, so we're excited.
Let's see, some of the other songs that I noticed. You like the Wah Wah a lot, which I do love.
Yeah.
Born to Love You definitely has like a ZZ Top-ish kind of feel to it, I noticed.
It does, exactly right. ZZ Top meets Jimi Hendrix with the wah wah or something.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, that's the way I described it. And you used the wah wah in Ghost of Yesterday, which is really a hard driving song, kind of an 80s sound to it, which I noticed too.
Yeah.
I'm just going down the line giving you my impression, because I always like to listen to people's music and describe. This Time Tomorrow, very dark, moody, almost a sexy sound to it.
Yes, for sure.
That's the one that's your tribute to Robin Trower, and it's kind of dark sounding. Tell me about that. How did that one come about?
Well, This Time Tomorrow, I came up with the music first. Actually, a lot of times I come up with the music first, and then I kind of write titles, and I have these titles in books that I just write down. I'd like to write a theme about or whatever, and that song, the music was almost completely done, and we were in the studio, and my drummer, because it was so slow and lethargic, he couldn't find out he didn't know where the chorus was, so he said, Gary, can you just sing anything just so I can know where the song's at? I said, well, I don't really have the lyrics yet. Mm-hmm. But I have this idea called This Time Tomorrow, and I started singing the song, and a lot of it started to unfold in the studio, and the lyrics. In the beginning, I couldn't find the right melody. I kept going too high, and, I'm not Robert Plant, so I didn't want to fake it. I got to find my range. So I found this kind of low, sexy melody at the last minute that I thought, this is kind of sexy, but the song has such a powerful chorus that, This Time Tomorrow, I love writing in the moment, and I wanted to write a song about somebody just realizing, like, there's a massive change happening in their life, and this time tomorrow, things will not be the way they are today.
Right.
And so having that urgency of that lyric, it just made me go, wow, that's really what it's got to be. And then what I wanted to do was make it kind of a love song, so to speak, where somebody just put everything into this person, and it didn't turn out to be what they thought, and that's why it says, I'll be gone this time tomorrow. So that's it.
Is that kind of your process, where you come up with a melody and then you keep like thoughts in a notebook or write stuff down?
I come up with a lot of titles, and then I write the songs very quickly. Usually after I have the title, I find out which song it fits musically, and then I go, bang, that's going to work for that music. And then all of a sudden the rhythm of the lyrics starts coming, and I sing a lot of gibberish. I don't always have the lyrics. One of the best songs for me on the album was Dust and Bones, the title track. because I had the music and I literally didn't have any lyrics. All I had was a title called Dust and Bones, and it was almost like a gift from God. I walked up to the microphone and I sang Drinking Whiskey on the River's Edge, and then the rest of the lyric just came out. I never wrote those words on a piece of paper. It was unbelievable.
Wow. Yeah, that one had kind of a Stevie Ray Vaughan sound to it.
It's got a moodiness to it.
Yeah.
But the chorus is catchy. You know, it goes into that double time chorus, and I think that kind of makes it kind of hooky. Because I do like big hooks, man. I'm a sucker for big hooks. You know,
Everybody.
I really love.
Yeah.
I love big choruses. I always have.
I really liked Blind Faith.
Oh, right on.
I wrote down it's kind of a dirty blues. I wrote great groove, and I like the slide, but it's kind of that, you know what I mean, that dirty, swampy kind of.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I wanted.
Well, you achieved it. You achieved it.
You hit it right on the head.
Yeah. Soul Surfer looks like it's an instrumental. Use a lot of reverb.
Yes. Well, that's that Dick Dale sound, you know. I think because I scored Endless Summer 2, the surf movie, I'll always have the surf in my blood. So that was a song I wrote, and I'm like, you know what, it's kind of surfy sounding with the reverb, but I still like it, and a lot of my fans like Endless Summer too, so I'm like, you know what, there's going to be fans that'll like that, you know.
Of course. I mean, you can't go wrong. It's kind of a retro feel.
It is. It really is. And you know, I gotta tell you, I see a lot of connection between blues and surf music. I really do, because the blues has the way the songs are written and the way surf music is written is a lot of times it's a 1-4-5 over a cool riff with a couple slides, reverb, but the way it bounces back and forth between the melody and the improvisation, that's what I've always loved about surf. You know, it's not a big hoopla. You know, if you listen to that song, it's not a big hoopla. It just comes in and it kind of sneaks in and it says, here we are, and we're taking you on a little ride, and it's not like a perfect structure, you know.
Mm-hmm. I think we covered everything we needed to cover, and thank you so much, Gary, and I love Dust and Bones, okay?
It was a pleasure to chat with you. I really appreciate you actually listening to the album.
I really did listen to it, yeah. Thank you so much.
We'll talk soon. We'll stay in touch.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
You're listening to Rock at Night.
Thanks for the intro melody. It's called Get On Down by Billy Bass Alford. Thanks.